We are back on Be the Best You, and I'm honored to have strength and conditioning pioneer and coach Martin Rooney on the show. He is an internationally recognized strength coach, speaker, and author. Martin founded Training for Warriors, an international fitness franchise that certified world-class coaches in over 275 locations in more than 30 countries. Martin was a Division I track and field athlete, former member of the U.S. bobsled team, and is currently a black belt in judo. He's lectured on the biggest stages at many of the top fitness events and has been featured on media outlets like ESPN, New York Times, Men's Health, Men's Fitness, Sporting News, and a host of others. Martin has written 8 books, and his most recent book, Coach to Coach, an empowering story about how to be a great leader, comes out on March 10th. He's been a consultant to many other athletes in the NFL, MLB, NBA, WNBA, numerous other Division I athletes, as well as Olympians. He's developed an NFL combine training programs, produced the fastest athlete at the combine 4 times, has worked with over 130 athletes who have been drafted in the NFL. I mean, I could keep going on with everything else Martin has done here, but it'd probably take me the rest of the show to go through it. So for the sake of time, I'll leave it at that. Most importantly, Martin is an amazing father to 4 girls and a coach of coaches. Martin, I truly appreciate you coming on the show.
Hey, my pleasure. And for anybody listening, all the things that he just said, yes, they're true. It just means I'm getting old. But it's it's sometimes amazing to hear those things, and it's actually humbling to sit there and listen to hey, you've done your homework where you gotta you're rattling off my whole life right there. But hey, for everybody listening too, today, it's not just going to be about all the great stuff. Hopefully, we're going to go over this and show you how I did it.
Absolutely. And, Martin, my first exposure to you was in 2015 when I saw you speak at the Perform Better Summit in Chicago. And you're one of the best speakers I've ever seen on stage and brought this unbelievable passion that's just unmatched. And I ended up doing one of your workouts in a breakout session at 8 a.m. And I remember everyone was kind of, I'm sure you've done this a million times. Everyone walks into the room, they're kind of like dreary-eyed, like got their cup of coffee. They're like still half asleep, and no one even knows each other. And by the end of the workout, that same group was just drenched in sweat, energized, like ready to take on the world. Like the workout was, as you even said, like nothing special. It was like high pulls, basic sprints, push-ups. But what stood out is you got this group of complete strangers who were still half asleep at the beginning to end up like cheering enthusiastically for each other. And you made this simple workout feel like an amazing experience. So before we get more into your story, I want you to tell me, Martin, you always bring this level of passion and energy in everything you do. And I think people want to know, like, what's your secret? How do you do it?
Well, I guess the secret, and this will maybe hopefully bring it all together too, is maybe the biggest secret that many people miss their entire lives is you got to do what you love. Now, I've heard that before. I know everybody's heard that, but see, you said things like passion and enthusiasm and getting other people excited. Well, the only way that I can do that is I got to be passionate, enthusiastic, and excited first. And that's what I am in terms of fitness and my career and what I do. I love to speak and I love to work with large groups and get them energized. So I don't know. I think for anybody listening, spinning it back on you, hey, do you really love what you do? Do you get up at 6 a.m. and you're so fired up and you can't wait to do what you're doing? And I know I am now because I had a number of jobs where I wasn't, like, hey, I've worked construction. I was a waiter. I did data entry. And then even when I aspired in my career and I became an orthopedic therapist, and it's nothing if any orthopedic therapists are listening, I liked it and I liked the people I worked with, but I didn't love it. And because I didn't love it, and this is important for everybody listening, when you don't love what you do, you get penalized twice. First, because you're kind of miserable, like I was. You have a knot in your gut. You don't feel like going to work. But the second one is you never get great. You're never going to be great at something you don't love, and then the world doesn't find you. So everything you said, the short answer is do what you love. And but the big thing is don't just say you know it. Hey, question yourself right now. So if anybody is listening, and man, you're way more passionate about something else, but you do what you do because, you get benefits, or, it's steady, or there's security. And man, and your greatness isn't coming out, just think about that double penalty that I just said.
Ooh, I love that. The double penalty. And actually, I wasn't even going to go this direction, but as long as you brought it up, like, how do you know, like, what your passion is? Like, let's say there's some people out there struggling, like, figuring out what they're going to do in their careers, or aren't fully satisfied with their jobs. Like, how do you find what you're passionate about and make that into a career? I know that's
Yeah.
a big topic, but
No, but it is, but it isn't. Here's what I'll say really clearly. Anybody listening right now, you already know what it is. It's sitting there deep in your gut. So here's the way I would say it. Where do you spend all your time? Like, so if you are at a job right now that you don't really enjoy, where are you spending all your extra time? And hopefully it's not Netflix and Starbucks lines, but what is it that you're passionate about? See, me, I was always working out. I was going to the gym. You know what else I was doing? I was going to seminars left and right to learn more about this thing that I wasn't even doing. And it was like, I was so passionate about it. And even I couldn't realize, man, this is what I should do. And why? Because people would say, oh, that's not a career. Remember, we're going back to the 1990s here. We kind of pioneered the sports performance industry. There was no such thing. Kids didn't lift weights. There was no such thing as speed training. And so everybody thought I was nuts. And it took a lot of courage and guts, and I wish I could have done it sooner. I wish I could just say, yeah, I had lots of courage and guts. No, it took me like 3.5 years of suffering until I finally said, hey, I just got to go for this, you know? So it would be, where do you spend all your time when you're not doing what you don't love? Another one would be, and I know this is cliche too, but if you had more money than you could ever deal with, what would you do? Now, if you're thinking low level, you're going to say, I'd be on a beach, baby. I'd buy a house in Aspen and then and a house at the beach. And no, see, that's going to get old really quick. And how do I know that? Because I've spent some time with uber successful people that have way more money than they will ever need. And you know what? They don't sit around. They actually do more. They use that wealth to do good. They use that wealth to chase their passions even harder and challenge themselves to be more. And so it's kind of interesting. Money doesn't make you do nothing. Money would make you probably do the thing you were born to do. For instance, Bill Gates is a great example. I mean, whenever I say Bill Gates, a lot of people, again, if you think low, you'll say, oh yeah, he did Microsoft, he has money. No, he's giving it all away. Now he's going to get known. They're going to build statues to that guy for curing malaria and changing education in the course of history. And same thing, Warren Buffett, you'd say, oh wow, he's a great investor. No, he's giving it all away too. So when you look at the greats, money doesn't define them. What it does is it challenges them for them to even find their passion too. So 2 answers there would be, hey, first take a look inside. You probably already know what it is. If you don't, start seeing what do you gravitate to all the time where you're spending your time, and see if you could find a job there or a part-time job there and try it out. And then third, really sit down and do that exercise. If your bank account was full and you didn't have to do anything tomorrow, how would you spend your time? Now, after the first few weeks of vacation and travel, what would you be doing to make the world a better place? And if you can figure that out and it serves a lot of people, that should be the thing you're doing.
Love it. Love it. And I resonate with that so much too, because that's how I first got into the fitness industry. Was I just found myself, all of my spare time was spent researching and reading up on fitness, strength, nutrition, how to build muscle. And yeah, I can resonate with that, because that's kind of how I got into it too. I'm just like, if every single time I'm not working, that's what I'm looking at, why not make that a career?
Well, absolutely. And not only that, but everybody recognizes when somebody's doing something they don't love. For instance, I coach track and field. I love it. And interesting, I don't do it for money. You see what I mean? Like, I don't do that. I do it because I love it. But using that as an example, yesterday when practice ended, I took my daughter. She got a protein shake before she had to go back for SAT classes. And the kids that were working in the smoothie place, you could tell how miserable they were, and they just did not enjoy either serving someone and they didn't have in any way probably a passion for nutrition. But now imagine, hey, and that's something else I'll say to everybody. Another piece of advice too is, you may have a dream job, but it may be tougher to reach. You may have to do a lot first. See, I have my dream job now, but I had to do a whole lot of things, sometimes stuff I didn't want to do to get there. So I don't want to sugarcoat it and say, hey, what do you want to do? Oh, I want a mega, Fortune 500 company. And then like tomorrow you are. No, you'd have to do a tremendous amount of things, maybe for 20, 30 years, but you would eventually have that best job. But my challenge to everybody listening too is, even if you know you're in a job you don't love, you can still treat it like you love it, which will probably lead to your next best job. So yes, I had jobs I didn't enjoy, but I always did my best at those. And I continued to move up the proverbial ladder of life as a result. So if you decide right now, oh man, I have this job, I don't like it, so now I'm going to be extra miserable, that's going to probably send you down a level, not up a level. So, and remember, and every job has something to teach and something to do, but I just want to make sure I get that across too, that it's not, I'm not telling anybody, go in, quit your job tomorrow and go, go try to be a marine biologist because you always love that. That might take some time before you could go do it. But at the same time, you should treat every job like you love it and like it's the best job, and you will keep ascending until your job is the best one.
I think that's a mic drop right there. I love it. I love it. So many gold nuggets there. And, I want to talk more about that stuff too, but I always like to give people context in the beginning because as you mentioned, there are many, failures you've had along the way. And I want to first know, start from the beginning. What were you like as a child growing up? And were you always this driven and passionate?
And it's funny, I get that question a bunch. And, because sometimes people will say, is drive, a genetic, is it, or is it, can you create it? And I believe we're born with internal drives. As human beings, we got to have these drives. We got to have drives to get food. We got to have drives to extend our families, all this stuff. There's these drives that we're all born with. So I would say, I want to believe that, I was a driven kid, but here's what's interesting. I was doing terrible in school. I hated school when I was a kid, which is funny because now I read like a maniac. So what I would say is I have been able to train myself to be able to do that and be on a quest for knowledge. I wasn't the most fit, right? I definitely wasn't the fittest kid either, but I do know sports was the thing I always loved the most. So maybe I didn't like school so much, and I didn't, I didn't feel like, back then though, no one was working out. There were no weight rooms or anything like that either. But man, did I love sports. So I was driven in athletics, and I will say this without a shadow of a doubt, I'm one of the most competitive people I know. So I would say that competitive drive or the drive to succeed has always been there. But a lot of my story wasn't, if you looked at me at points along the story, you wouldn't have said, wow, look at this successful guy. It wasn't probably until high school when I really dug into school and I dug into training and I dug into athletics that's where it all changed for me. And, but the spark, at least for who I am now, that thing was always in there. I always wanted to be around sports and coach or play sports. And I always believed it was going to happen. And then it kind of did. So maybe that's an important thing is it's not was I always so driven? I guess it's more, what did I believe? Because whatever you believe is the thing is probably going to be the way you act. And then the thing you act is going to be what you become. And, so I was always this athlete coach at heart and really competitive. And now I find myself always in situations where that's what I do. So short answer, yes, I was probably always a little bit like this, but I wasn't like an on fire maniac, maybe like I am now, because a lot of my time was being spent doing stuff I didn't like. Like when you're in social studies class or you're learning math that seems too hard for you, it's not time to be excited, But again, that goes again to find your passion and where you're aligned, and that great stuff will come out.
Love it. So, you maybe weren't the best, weren't the smartest, weren't the most athletic, but you always were competitive and knew you wanted to do better. So I know you obviously competed in track and field in college. So what did you, I think it was at Furman, correct?
Yep.
So what?
University in South Carolina. And predominantly I was a thrower, and really specifically I was a javelin thrower. So I was the first 4-time all-conference champion at Furman ever. And I had the school record for about 25 years too, which it got broke more recently. But it's an interesting story. There were a number of universities that were interested in me and I was interested in them. But, and this is a cool thing, and maybe everybody should hear this, which I don't talk about a lot. Furman was the only school that had an exercise science program that I was looking into. All the other ones, they were like, you'll just take biology or something else. And so I chose Furman, not just, hey, I knew I would do well in athletics, but I chose it for the career and the passion. So see, again, that sign was there. Wow, you could study exercise. And I saw like their lab, and I met some of the professors who became lifelong friends who I still talk to all the time. And again, maybe Furman didn't have the clout or the notoriety of some of the other schools. But whenever I play the what if game, I know I made the best choice because I chased what I wanted to pursue in my life, not 4 years of track and field. You know what I mean? And so I'll also, and you know what? It's worked out pretty good, because after that, I went to the Medical University of South Carolina, and then I got my master's degree in health sciences and also my degree in physical therapy. So I ended up on a journey of 8 years of education that never would have happened if I didn't if I didn't make that selection the way I did. So one thing is, hey, make sure you're chasing your passion, not things for the wrong reason, but also sometimes little decisions become huge things in your life. So right now, imagine this. If I say go to Notre Dame, right? Or if I go to Boston University, I wouldn't be talking to you right now. I wouldn't have my children, my kids, or, I wouldn't know my wife. I would have not made the bobsled team because I made it because I was in South Carolina, which is really weird. So there's weird stuff, but what it forces me to always understand is I'm very particular about the decisions I make, because I know a simple decision can unravel huge things for the rest of your life. And, hey, make sure you're going in the direction that you want to be going. And now I'll say this, I wasn't thinking like that when I was, I was actually 17 when I selected, because I graduated young. I was 17 when I made that decision, but man, I'm happy I did. But it did teach me the lessons of, make decisions for the right reasons and really think them through.
So even though you were kind of a younger age in college, at high school at the time, you were still thinking about your career beyond that. And let's talk next. So like after you get done with college, like, are you right into strength and conditioning? Like what happens next?
No. So remember, I went to the Medical University of South Carolina. That was another bunch of years. And here's why. This was where the tide turned a little in my decisions. Everybody was telling me, you got to be a physical therapist, man. That's the next hot job. Everybody, like, physical therapy, that's like all athletes and stuff. And I was like, what? Really? And so, man, I pursued that. And it was really hard to get in. Out of thousands of applicants, they only took 40 kids for our class. So, I had straight A's in college, which then got me to the Med-U. But then I'll tell you this again. When I got there, I loved some of the study. Like, man, I loved physiology. I loved anatomy. I really enjoyed that stuff, pathophysiology, pharmacology. But then when I really started to dig down into the physical therapy aspect, I was starting to really realize that it really wasn't about athletics at all. And it was a lot of things that I wasn't aware of. So I will say I didn't do as much research, I think, about what the career really was or what it was going to entail. And I went with it because everybody said that's what I should do. And so now here's where it gets interesting, though, is I made the U.S. bobsled final semester of school. So I actually took a semester off from school, went for the season, then came back and finished school, and then was on the bobsled team for the next couple of years. So I was on the bobsled team, living at the Olympic Training Center, not doing anything. I was actually a starving athlete. My buddy who won the silver medal at the Olympics, excuse me, we lived in a one-room apartment eating cans of tuna. That's our old joke. All we could have was like cans of tuna and like a bag of rice, trying to stay alive. It was not a glorious, like, oh, wow, cool time. The Olympic Training Center was great, but when you were on your own, you're a starving athlete. If you haven't noticed, there's not a lot of probably rich people don't enter bobsled to become rich. But I loved representing the United States, and I loved the full-time training. And that's where I really saw athletics at the highest level, where, again, that passion was there for me, and I should have seen it. But when I decided, hey, man, bobsled, where am I going with this? I need to start my life. I became an orthopedic therapist. And I came home to New Jersey, which is where my parents still lived. I was living with my parents because I didn't have a home at that point. And I became an orthopedic therapist and started, listen to this story, started my 1 hour, one-way commute every day to then, man, do like 8 or 10 hour shifts, 4 people an hour, paperwork all night because the insurance industry had changed at that point. Everything was so much. And I just felt like I was buried, man. I was buried, and I would just go home. By the time I would get home, I'd eat something, wake up, and go do it again. And I started living for Friday and Saturdays, which was all about athletics and sport and everything. I started dreading Sundays and Mondays. And man, and I did it for years until I kept chasing this other stuff so much. I just couldn't physically and mentally stand it anymore. I had to take a shot at this thing I was more passionate about. So again, when you really hear that, I hope everybody sees when I start from like when I graduated to when I finally made that call, we're talking like, 5, 6 years. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I know what I'm doing and I'm passionate and let's go. But all those, I would never trade it because there was incredible lessons. And now because of what it's taught me, it makes me love what I do every day even more because I remember where I was from. So maybe the worst thing that can happen to somebody, for instance, in athletics, they say sometimes the worst thing is somebody is so talented they never have to work hard. Well, in your career, maybe a big mistake is you never had any job, and then you go get your first real job, and you don't know if you love it or not because you don't have anything to base it off of, and you end up maybe you just do something you never love, but you never knew, right? So that is the story to that point.
All right. Love it. And again, I think there's so many good points there because like you just said, you didn't even know what you want to do and didn't find your passion right away, but it's something that you kind of developed and you just were like, okay, on the weekends, all I did was enjoy playing sports and you just kind of made that your career. So like how did you first start then in strength and conditioning and how did you start to like build up your relationships and connections and clients?
This is a great part of the story too is, remember, it wasn't like I was just playing sports on the weekends. Like I said, I was going to any courses that would exist. Remember, this is almost pre-internet. So I would get any books I could get my hands on. I would travel to go meet, gurus in the industry. And I was flying to a speed and agility course in Tyler, Texas. And on the plane sitting next to me, also going to the course, was a guy named Bill Parisi. And he had started the Parisi Speed School. He was also a javelin thrower like myself. So we had known each other way earlier. He was so passionate about this, man, excuse me. But by the end of that plane flight, I already knew I wanted to work with this guy. Like this guy he was again, passionate, energized, knew what he wanted to do. And it was so magnetic that by the end of the trip, I came home, we started coming up with the plan. And it was tough because to transition out of physical therapy and into this career that really didn't have any stability or security. And ready for this part of the story, man, and I forget some of these things. I moved up to northern New Jersey and lived in the basement of a guy that I met because I would go to Jet games on the weekend. And this guy would always sit next to me at New York Jet games, which is pretty ironic because I ended up working for the Jets for 4 years, much later as a speed and conditioning and hand fighting consultant. And, but I lived with this guy and I would live in the basement. I would just go to the gym and all I would do is read all day and study all day and train kids and athletes. And then I would come home and just do it again and again. It was all I was doing. I was like completely immersed like a maniac. And really where I grew were all these years nobody could see like that, because I just had nothing else going on. And I was finally pursuing my passion. So I'll tell you, if they gave out PhDs for that kind of stuff, I should have a bunch of them, but it was just nonstop research and learning. And we were creating this program. It was just so exciting. And that was the base of where it all got built. So really, man, if anybody's listening, when you originally read all the stuff about me, people could say, oh, wow, that's great. That's great. That's great. Man, like I said, now I'm even seeing it by going down memory lane today. There was a decade and a half of this foundation that I was so ceaseless in my pursuit to build that's how everything then got constructed on top of it. And so again, pulling it out for the listener, if you're listening, what foundation do you need to build to have the stuff that you really want? And that's what I was kind of hinting at, but now I get it. Remember I said, yeah, you just can't just go build a company because you want it, man, in a week. But if you build this foundation for years, that thing's going to seem like it happened really quick when the time comes. So that's what I would be challenging everybody right now. What are you reading? What are you studying? What gurus are you seeking out? What is your pursuit? Where, man, I was singular minded, man. All I was doing was training and studying and growing, and that's it. And I've kind of been on that, and that was over 20 years ago. That was 22 years ago when that started. So to put in perspective too. So that may sound scary, like, oh man, 22 years, I don't want to do stuff for 22 years. 22 years is going to happen. What are you going to do about it? You can either have nothing at the end of 22 years, or you can create a dynasty if you want. What do you want to do?
So many gold nuggets in there, because I think what you said was so true, because it wasn't like you were an overnight. I think a lot of people just think, oh, he's an overnight success.
Yeah,
he just built up all this stuff, and you're like, oh my gosh, like you were living in people's basements and eating basic food and
and by the way, broke. You know what I mean?
Broke
thing too. Like, yeah, there wasn't any help or assistance or fun. I was doing all those things because I was broke, not because I wanted to. Hey, I would have loved to eat better and stayed in a nicer spot. But here's the other part too, is I didn't care, because that wasn't what I was worried about. I was worried about getting better, and if you worry long enough about being better, I guess the money and the things that come with that, the house and all the other things, that'll come. But if you never are great at anything, then don't expect it. So maybe, that's another part of the lesson is, hey, go be great and the world will find you. And then the stuff that you're after, it'll show up in your life.
That transitions perfectly to the next question, because I was going to ask, like, people are probably thinking, how did you get in touch with all these, professional athletes, teams, like organizations? Like, did they find you, or were you just like so good at what you did, they just like sought you out? Did you seek them out? Like,
yeah, they sought us out. We were I'm not hey, in networking now, I think I'm pretty good. But back then, I just had my head down, man, and was just trying to be great. And here's what's interesting. I will make this claim. If you're great at what you do, the people that need what you do are going to find you. So for instance, hey, if you need brain surgery, you're going to go to a lousy guy?
No.
No, what are you going to do? You're going to do your research. You're going to find the best guy in the world, and you're going to go to him. He's not looking for you. You know what I mean? Like, right. He's not calling you up. Hey, do you need some brain surgery? I'm real good. He becomes so great, the world finds him. And that's what we did. I mean, and it wasn't just the kid. It started with the kids, but then as the word got out, it was the New York Giants, the New York Jets, pros. And then, hey, here's the other part too, is I started producing books. We started making DVDs that went everywhere. And remember that, so you could say we were putting it out there and we were networking, but a lot of the calls were happening because of the media coverage and the information that we were putting out there to help people. And then more stuff came back tenfold. So another great lesson there is, hey, once you get great, you got to share. You can't keep it to yourself. You got to put that stuff out there. And that's how the world finds you. For instance, hey, you wrote, right? I didn't call you up. You're like, you said, hey man, do you want to do this? For sure. Let's go. Let's do it. Yeah. But the only way you know about me is you either saw me speak at that event where I'm giving everything I got and giving away as much information as I can in the shortest period of time. And then things come back to you. So another great lesson there in the story. And just like I'm sharing right now, I'm not holding back. I want to share everything I can share so that somebody else can be better and then they go do it too. So, so the short answer is we weren't seeking it out. We were seeking being great. And because we were great, people sought us out. Just like I said, that world-class surgeon or the best chef, you're going to find that, the best restaurant in the world doesn't call you up and ask if you want dinner. You go and find it, right? So the challenge to anybody listening is, what are you doing today to be great?
Yes, so good. So many gold nuggets there. Just be so good they can't ignore you, and then they will find you. So next part, training for warriors. You've got this huge international, fitness business. And I mean, now you've got affiliate gyms all over the world. So how did you first start this movement, and how have you been able to build up so many gyms across the world?
Yeah, well, the same thing. It's funny. That's been going 20 years as well. I started in the late 90s training with Renzo Gracie when he had come from Brazil. I was one of the original students for that guy. And I was very interested, again, like I said, in sports and combat. I had wrestled, and my friend, it's pretty lucky too, as my friend said, man, this guy has got this place in Manhattan. We got to go. And we started going. And remember, I was off the bobsled team and knew a lot about strength and conditioning. So they took a liking to me and kind of made me the de facto strength and conditioning guy for their team. And then I started traveling with them. And then as Parisi's took off, I started training a lot of the fighters, and the training for the fighters, no one had ever done that before. So I was pioneering that too. And it was radically different than anything else anyone was doing. And here's how it all led. That led to me getting asked to be a writer about it. I started writing a ton about it. Then I wrote a self-published book. Then a big publishing house sought me out and we did a big book. Then that book went so big, people around the world started calling saying, can you come do seminars? I started doing seminars. Then, because the industry changed, those seminars became certifications. Then at the certifications, people said, well, how do I want to run this thing, man. How do I do it? The certifications became licenses. Then people started licensing gyms, but they started just as trainers inside of gyms, using the workouts and the things we did. But then people started dedicating spaces in the gyms to training for warriors. Then they started building their own training for warriors. And now, with hundreds of them around the world and thousands of people being impacted a day, it's so humbling. And these aren't fighters anymore. Training for Warriors is an adult fitness program. And now we're not trying to put belts around people's waists. We're tightening their waists down. And it's so amazing and humbling to see every day another success story or somebody that I've never met that's using my system and has improved their life. And that is a big part of my passion. But the full circle part of it is, so it's again, fitness, it's exercise, what I love. These people are training like athletes, but even cooler is that I get to coach everybody, right? And again, that's that word. So where I'm at right now in my career and what the new book that I've released that you mentioned is about, it's really that I saw the whole time, it wasn't just the sports and the fitness aspect, it was the coaching. And that's what I love. So now I coach these guys, not just the fitness, but how to run their businesses and coaching them in their lives. And just like I'm doing today on this podcast for somebody, whoever is listening right now, I'm coaching you. I just coached you. Don't get a job you don't like. Hey, build your foundation and really do your best. Find the thing you want to be great at and go for it, and the world will find you. You see how, so now looking back, I was always this coach at heart. And actually now I am a track coach and I still coach people all the time in fitness as well, but it's on a bigger stage where I can impact more people. And, but that is the history of TFW. So another interesting thing, where it is now, if you said, hey man, did you think it was going to be that? I would say no. I kept delivering what the world wanted. And now here we are. You know what I mean? So I never sat down, unfortunately, like a lot of companies, and they'll say, hey, they're at some boardroom table. Let's put all this money in, make up a name, do this thing, and just rip it out there and try to make money. And then unfortunately, maybe it doesn't work because it was never built, the right way. Where that, I think, is the piece I'm most proud of TFW is it was built with the best athletes in the world and worked for a long time before we ever shared it with anybody else. And now it continues to work, where one peeve I have in fitness is everybody tried to get so creative, they forgot about what really works and have confused so many people that I think in some way it's hurting fitness, where, man, it's not that hard, 8 hours of sleep, eat the right foods that everybody knows what they are, lift weights a couple days a week and move a couple days a week, and you can change your life. And instead we got people doing the craziest stuff, getting hurt and trying to find the new superfood from the Amazon that's going to make them lean in an hour. And, so I'm also on a mission to make sure that we're always still getting the right info out there too.
Love it. And again, so much information and great stuff right there. And you're also just kind of along those same lines you're just talking about. Like, it's not that hard a lot of times, or like it's simple in principle to do a lot of this stuff, but you're also like a very motivational person. I think a lot of people think okay, well, how do I motivate someone to do things, whether it's in, fitness, business, anything? And what advice would you have to someone who's trying to become more motivational, or someone who's maybe like lower energy, a little bit shyer, and wants to become like more motivational?
Well, hey, first thing is, there's a bunch of stuff if I had to, distill it out. And I get asked about that a lot. But the first thing is you got to be a little more on fire. Like, hey, I'm not going to lie right now. I'm tired. I'm beat, man. Like, I know what I got to do today too. And by the time I get home at night and with my kids and everything else too and stuff, I'm wiped, but I can't act wiped. I got to act passionate and get going. And then what happens is when you do that, it does happen. And so the first thing is, don't make excuses. Oh, well, I'm low energy, or, oh, I'm not motivated. Well, you got to get motivated, or you got to go find another industry that, doesn't do that or doesn't need that, because one of the core pieces that a coach has to be is motivated, right? You have to. Like, motivate essentially means to make somebody take some action. So that's what a coach does, right? Now, that being said, we've already hinted at it. It should be in an area you're really passionate about. I get so fired up about sport and track and fitness that I get other people fired up about it. So that's another piece of it is you got to do it and live it and love it. So anybody listening, whatever it is you teach or you sell, man, I see so many people that whatever they teach or sell, they don't even do that thing, or they don't even use that product. Yeah. And you're never going to motivate anybody like that, right? So you got to do the things you say you do. Then you got to be fired up. And here's the next part. And you got to be more excited and fired up for that other person. See, that's, I think, the other mistake. Like fitness now, everybody's worried about their own Instagram and what they look like and what they did. And look at me. And it's like, no, if you want to motivate somebody, it's got to be all about them and be so pumped up about them. And see, being a coach for as long as I had to make that transition too. I mean, there is a period of time in your life when you are more selfish, whether you say from when you're a kid or when you're in high school or whatever else. It's hard to see the big picture, but the big picture is to serve as many other people as you can. And when you're so pumped up, like I got more excited about the victories of my other people than I did for me. You know what I mean? Like, and when you really show that, it's going to motivate somebody more because simply, hey, it shows you care. So maybe that would be it. It's like, first thing is, man, you gotta raise your energy level and get going, or find the thing that gets your energy level up. The next one is, man, you better make sure you're doing the stuff that you're telling everybody else you're doing. See, the kids are going to listen to me, but in the weight room or on the track, because I did it. Like, then they can't say, did you not do it, coach? And they still see I'm in shape and I still do it. So they know it. And then the other part is, but they know people can see through lies, right? It's pretty easy. And they just know when you're there really to help them out and you want nothing more for them than them to succeed. And when you start doing that, people want to work hard for you. So that would be my, short answer to that, or at least the secrets of what I do is, I'm not sitting there worried about my Instagram when I'm working with somebody. I'm worried about them doing better. And if they do better, I'm going to let them know about it. And actually, it's a good segue because that's what my whole new book is about. Like, okay. So the new book, here, I'll even show a picture of it because I get the books next week. The book is called Coach to Coach. And it's a parable. It's a story because I've been traveling around the world also presenting on coaching now for a decade. And everybody would always say, you got to do a book, man. You got to do a book. When are you doing the book? And it never felt right. Like, I didn't want to write a textbook or a workbook on coaching, like, hey, make sure you, fist bump twice on, Tuesdays or, it just didn't work. So what I was always great at was telling stories. And I think a coach has to be a great storyteller. So I said, man, I'm going to take a total departure here. I'm going to write a story. So I wrote a coaching story that has stories within the story, but it brings out all the best lessons that I learned about being a coach. And man, I took a big shot. I sent it to the biggest publishing house, no agent, so I guess everybody's learning my style today. Guys, like, I don't know. I'm not waiting around. I don't go get agents. I don't try to manufacture things. And I'm not saying don't do that, but if what you do is so great, they're going to find it. And I got a call back from the biggest publisher in 2 days. And not only did they purchase the book and say they're going to publish it, then they said, it's so great, we're going to fast track it. So instead of a year and a half coming out, it's going to come out in a couple months. Let's go.
Wow.
Right? And now it's coming out. Depending on when somebody is listening to this, it's coming out on March 10th. And the whole goal is to get people to purchase this before then, so we can prove to the publisher that this topic has merit. So if anybody's listened today and you've loved my 45-minute fire hose of nuggets, the best way you can thank me is to get a copy or two and give it to somebody, whether it's on Amazon or wherever you get books, before the March 10th date. If it's after March 10th when you hear this, hey, still get it, you'll love it. But that'll help prove to the publisher that this is a book that people want and they need.
Love it. And I will definitely make sure to get this episode out before March 10th. And yeah, I'll be getting it myself, and others I'm sure will as well. Coach to coach. And it's just kind of Martin, like Martin said, his style is just like telling stories and showing people, through story, like what's possible, kind of like what he was talking about right here. And I know we just have, not much time left here, so I want to make sure that I finish on these couple of questions here. So first of all, where can people find you? Like, I'm sure everyone listening right now is like, holy cow, I got to go and find out more about Martin Rooney. Where can we find?
Yeah, so you can find me wherever you find everybody. So, hey, I'm on social media. So I'm on Facebook. You can find me there. Instagram, my handle is the Martin Rooney. I'm also on LinkedIn as well. I've got tons and tons of videos up on YouTube that would bury you with content. And I have 2 websites that have a ton of information in my almost weekly blogs for the last 10 years. So you can go to either trainingforwarriors.com and learn more about that there, or you can go to coachinggreatness.com and find that about coaching. And actually, I got another site too. And if you're interested in presenting and you liked how I talked today, you can go to presentinggreatness.com too. And I got information about that there as well. So I even forgot about that. So we're always doing a lot. But hey, and I'm just hoping today that everybody listening, again, one best way you can thank me, get the book and tell somebody about it, because the world needs better coaches, and I'm on a mission to make that happen. But the second way you can thank me is take some action on some of the things I talked about today, even if it's just one of them. Even if it's just deciding that there's something greater that you would want to pursue, the world will be a better place someday because you did it, right? And so I think there's too many people that just listen and they're information gatherers, not enough action takers. And that's what a coach is all about, to get them to do it. So if there's a way you want to thank me for coaching you today, get the book and then start taking action.
Love it. Love it. And then final question, I always like to leave folks on this one. So you've accomplished so much in your career so far. You have a long ways to go. When it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered. I mean, the simplest way would be to say that there were so many lives that were somehow improved because I did my best work here on planet Earth. And right now in particular, it's in coaching, where I just watch, because when I'm out coaching, there's a lot of other coaches there. I see a lot of coaches say the wrong thing or do the wrong thing to kids that could negatively impact their life. And just about everybody that I've ever talked to says, yeah, I've had some good coaches, but I've had a lot of bad coaches, and I wish that I didn't. And right now, that is my mission. That now imagine that we can create a movement that now either people know better what it means to be a coach, or certain people that are the wrong people don't get to be a coach. Mm-hmm. And now imagine somebody's life being so radically different. And then they maybe have kids, and then that kid goes and cures cancer. You never know where the ripples are going to go, but I do know it starts with a coach. So I think, ultimately that's going to be my great life's work. And the area where I've found that I'm hoping to make the maximum impact. So that would be, it is being remembered for, or I'm not even being remembered. I don't care if I get remembered for it, because you might not know where it came from, like we talked about today. But what I'm saying is my legacy, right? There's a difference there. The legacy will be people's lives are better because of the work that I did.
So good. So good. Thank you so much for sharing that, Martin. Again, go connect with Martin, find out more about his stuff. And Martin, thanks again for coming on the show today.
My pleasure.